In this video we are going to see how can you deploy your code on EC2 instances which are behind the load balancer or autoscaling group. As you can see in diagram, the Jenkins is going to play a vital role in this use case. So Jenkins job will create a build of your source code and it will archive your code and put on S3 bucket. At the same time it will trigger your code deployment. Using that deployment, code deploy will deploy that code on all the running instances behind the load balancer or autoscaling group. So before we go ahead, let me tell you one thing. As you can see, the code is archived on S3. So EC2 instances should have permission to access object on S3. So we will create a service role for EC2 instances. Through that, EC2 instance can interact with S3. At the same time, we need another service role. Using that, code deploy service can interact with EC2 load balancer and autoscaling group. So let's create a service role for EC2 instance and code deploy service. So let me navigate to IAM service. IAM. Move to roles. And role is EC2 permission. Here is for S3. So S3 read only permission is sufficient for this role. Next, the name is EC2 S3 role. Okay. Now we need to create a role for code deploy service. Create role, code deploy. Allow code deploy to call AWS services such as autoscaling on your behalf. You can check in policy what policies and what services can be interacted by this role. Using this role, code deploy can interact with autoscaling, CloudWatch, EC2, ELB version 2, resource group tagging and SNS. Review, name, code deploy, role. So we are done with code deploy and EC2 service role. Here I am going to create EC2 instances on which my application will be deployed. So right now I am going to create 4 EC2 instances behind a load balancer. I have already modified AMI available with my account. Using that AMI I am going to create these instances. So let me navigate to EC2 service. EC2 So I don't have any running instances right now. So let me create instances. In my AMI I will get my all modified AMI. So you can see I have 2 AMI. I am going to use the first one, all code deploy instances. I am going to create 4 instances using this AMI, and all the prerequisites are available on this instance. And like I have installed LAMP as my application is PHP based. So all the prerequisites are already there, and most important thing, the code deploy agent should be installed and running on your instances. So it is already installed and enabled on boot. So whenever these instances will come up, my agent will be running. I will let you know how you can install CodeDeploy-agent manually. Okay, so let's select this. I'm going to use free tier for the demo. Okay, so number of instances 4 and subnet is like this. Okay, now the IAM role, this is very important. As we have seen, we have created 2 roles, one for code deploy and one for EC2. So we are going to select EC2. You can see the EC2 has 3 roles. And you can leave rest of the things. Add storage. In my case, I am going to use 8 GB, sufficient for me. And a tag, giving a name, all code deploy instances. Security groups, let me choose the existing one I have. Okay, as you can see, it has 80, 443, 8080, 192. Okay, review and launch, and I'm going to select my key pair. Launch instances. So as you can see, it has created 4 instances. Here we go. You can see all the instances are running. So now I am going to create a load balancer through which the traffic will be distributed on all these instances. Load balancer, you will get load balancer here. Okay, create a load balancer. I'm going to use application load balancer for my HTTP application. Create, name is CodeDeploy ELB. Yeah, it is internet facing, or I can select internal, but in this demo I'm going to use internet facing. HTTPS, VPC yes. So I'm going to select all the availability zone, or whether I can select only one. But if you have instances in different availability zone, I would recommend to use all availability zone. Security group. It is throwing a warning that I have not created a listener for HTTPS protocol, but it is demo. I'm not going to use HTTPS. Okay, security group, I'm use the existing one. Okay, now creating a target group. Target group name is CodeDeploy TG, and I'm going to path is index.php and leaving all the things as it is. You can modify these things according your requirement. The overall tutorial is on code deploy, so we are not focusing on the each element of ELB. And register target. So you can see the 4 instances are running. We can select 1, 2, 3, 4 and add to target. So these are the instances on which ELB will distribute the traffic. Review and create. So ELB part is done. The next important thing is setting up application on CodeDeploy. Let's do it. So I am navigating to code deploy service, deploy. Okay, so right now I have no application created on code deploy, so you can see there is no application listed. So I'm going to create one. Sample deployment, custom deployment. Custom deployment that we are going to use. Let me tell you what is sample deployment. Sample deployment basically is for the user who are very new or who are not familiar with the code deploy service. So they can use sample deployment. Take a look how it does work, how it creates instances, or how it deploy code on the different instances with a different type of deployment. So right now I have already running instances, so I'm going to use custom deployment. Skip walkthrough. Name my first web app. Okay, compute platform. So CodeDeploy is basically available for EC2 instances and AWS Lambda functions. So in this tutorial we are going to use EC2 instances or on-premises instances. So I have created my instances on EC2, so I have selected compute platform as EC2 instances. You can see AWS Lambda is also available, but we are going to use EC2. The group name, I'm going to give a group name. Okay, the deployment type, let me tell you this thing. So in this tutorial we are going to focus on in place deployment. Also I will let you know what is blue-green deployment. Okay, in place deployment is all about to deploy code on the instances, and during the deployment that specific instance would not be available or will be offline. In blue-green deployment, it creates a new set of instances, deploy all the codes, all the latest code on the instances, make them up and remove the old one. So usually you can use any of the type of deployment, but in this tutorial we are going to use in place deployment. In my next video we will use blue-green deployment. Okay, environment configuration. I'm not going to use any auto scaling group. All my instances behind the load balancer, so I'm going to just use my EC2 instances. So code deploy. Okay, so it is showing 4 instances and the list of all 4 instances available here. Enable load balancer. Yes, I'm going to use load balancer. Application load balancer. Yes, the code deploy. Next thing is deployment configuration. Deployment configuration is all about how the code deploy is going to deploy the code on the instances. So let's take a look. Deployment configuration. So there are 3 deployment configuration available right now. First one is code deploy default all at once. So using this configuration, code deploy will deploy code on the all instances at once. If you are having 10 instances, it will deploy the code on 10 at once. So there are possibility of outage, or you can say downtime of your instance. So it is not recommended to use all at once configuration. And the next one is code deploy default half at once. So half at once, if you are having 10 instances, so it will deploy code on first 5, and once the deployment done on first 5, it will deploy on the rest one, and the last one is code deploy default one at a time. So this is the most recommended deployment configuration, which has 99% of health. If you are having 10 instances, so it will deploy the code on each instances one by one. During the deployment, that specific instances will not be available, but other 9 will have the availability, or they will be available. Okay, so this is the most recommended configuration type, so I'm going to use this one. In advanced, let's see what trigger. So during the deployment there are couple of events happens, so you can have the notification or the trigger on each event. So right now I'm going to create a trigger. Whenever a specific event perform, it will notify me. So I'm going to create a trigger for notification. Notify me for failure. And event is fail rollback. So I have already created one SNS topic notification. So I have created email me a notification. I will let you know in my SNS video how to create SNS topic and what is SNS. So, and you can see the trigger is created. I'm not going to use any alarm as such. For alarm you can create CloudWatch alarm for deployment group, but I'm not going to use. And rollback, yes, I want rollback when the deployment fails. Next is service role. So we have seen how we have created a service role for code deploy. I'm going to use that service role for the application. That was code deploy. You can see right here, code deploy role. Create application. And you can see application is created. So next thing, we are going to see how we can configure a Jenkins job to trigger a deployment. So let me log into my Jenkins and see how we can configure a code deploy job. For code deploy, we required a code deploy plugin. So manage Jenkins. In available section, you search for AWS CodeDeploy. As I have already installed this plugin, so you can see it is available in installed section. Okay, let's create an item code deploy job freestyle project. Okay, so my source code is available on GitHub sample site. Okay, so let me tell you how we can configure this job. Let's get source code management. Okay, and in post build action we need to find deploy an application to AWS CodeDeploy. Okay, so parameter it requires first is code deploy application name. So we can find the code deploy application name. Okay, my first the group name is my first payback group, and it requires AWS CodeDeploy deployment config. So we have selected config. We have selected code deploy default one at a time. So if you need to know about all those three default configuration, you can click on this and you can check how the minimum health host value is for these three type of configuration. So I need to give this name in my configuration and let me select the correct. So I am in US East 1. It requires one S3 bucket. In that it will upload archive of code. So it requires a S3 bucket, and using S3 bucket it will put the archive of source code. So let me see if I have any S3 bucket available. Okay, so I am having one bucket. Let me create one folder name code deploy 5. Code deploy archive. So it requires code deploy S3 bucket, so bucket name, and it also needs the folder name. An S3 folder name is called by prefix. Okay, and the last thing is use AWS secret key. You can use this secret key in this job as well, or create a global credential. So I'm using access key and secret key in this job only. So let me get my access key and secret key. So let me tell you how we can create a access key and secret key using IAM. Dashboard, users, create a user if you are not having any user. So right, I am having one user called Amrit Sharma. Click on that, and in security credential you can see I have two keys available. One is active, one is inactive. I am going to use the active one. If you wish to create another one, you can create that one as well. Okay, cannot exceed the quota of access key 2 per user. So I'm having 2 key and it is the limit, so I'm going to delete the first one. Now I can create access key. Okay, here is my access key. This is what I require, and the secret key. But you can see my access key and secret key in this video, but don't worry, I'm going to delete this access key and secret key after this tutorial. And let me check if we have missed anything. Great, so I think we are good here. So our Jenkins job is done. So let me tell you one thing about code deploy, how it does work with your source code. So it requires a YML file called AppSpec.yml. It has all the specification which are going to perform during the deployment. You should mention all the steps. So, or you can see the event in this file. So Or let me tell you, or let me show you how this file looks like in. You can see file attribute is copying all the file from the source to the destination. Here source is the workspace and destination is HTML directory and hooks. Hooks are the event that is going to perform in deployment. So before installation, before what action you want to perform. So I have written down some commands in small shell scripts, and you can see I have one folder called script, and all the scripts are available in this directory, and these all are the shell scripts. I have mentioned all the steps. For stop Apache, I want all the contents should be removed. So you can see here all the scripts are available for the different event. For stop Apache, I have given two commands like remove all the contents from HTML directory and stop Apache. Similarly, you can create multiple scripts and trigger these scripts in multiple events. So you need to understand how this appspec.yml file works. So take a look, or you can download this file from the GitHub repository. I'm going to give the URL of my GitHub repository in the description section. You can get from there. Okay, so this is all about the AppSpec YML. So before I trigger this job, let me take a look to my load balancer. Okay, this is my load balancer and this is my DNS. So this is the DNS I can use. Okay, right now you can see it is giving me hello India, hello India, hello India and hello India. I have refreshed this page 4 times and getting the same content. Let me start my Jenkins job. Build now. Okay, so it has created one zip in code deploy archive folder. S3. If I refresh this, okay, so our application deployment is in progress. You can see it is in progress. Let me see how the deployment group is behaving. Okay, so you can see 3 instances are in pending and 1 is in progress, because I have selected code deploy default one at a time configuration type. So that is why it is selecting 1 instances at a time. So once the deployment on this instance will be done, it will move to the another instance. So I am going to pause this video for a while. So meanwhile it is in process, we can see what events are going to perform. So first is block traffic. So it is on ELB. It is blocking the traffic for that specific instances. If I move to the ELB and go to the target groups, so you can see this instances it's draining. It is trying to deregister this instance from load balancer. It will deregister this instance, deploy all the latest code on this instance, and again it will register this instance in this load balancer. So these are the steps you can see written there. And the last is after allow traffic. So usually it takes time. We can wait for a while because we have 4 instances and it will perform same action on all the 4 instances. So let me pause this video. I will resume shortly. So you can see deployment on 1 instances has been successfully done and it start to deploy on another instance. Meanwhile, if I try to access the website, let me refresh my website. First, second. So you can see in the second refresh, it has the latest code. On third, it is again the old one, because we have right now 3 instances which are having old code and 1 instances which has latest code. So this way it is going to deploy on all instances one by one. So this entire process will take couple of minutes, so I'm going to pause my video. So you can see deployment on all the instances has been done. Now we can check using website URL whether we are getting the latest code or not. Refresh. Okay, so we are having latest code on all the instances running behind the load balancer. So this is all about the code deployment we can use using in-place deployment. In last video we have seen how we can deploy our code using CodeDeploy service with the help of in-place deployment. In this video we are going to see how this blue-green deployment does work actually. For blue-green deployment, so I have created auto scaling group, ELV, and there are 2 instances behind the load balancer. So let me show you my EC2 instances. So you can see there are 2 EC2 instances right now available, and all these instances are behind the auto scaling group. Okay, and there is load balancer called CodeDeploy ELV, and the target group is CodeDeploy-TG, and you can see both the instances are under this target group. Now let me show you how we can create a CodeDeploy application. Okay, let's get it started. Custom deployment. As in my earlier video I have told you what is sample and custom deployment, so I'm not going to tell you about what is custom, what is sample deployment. Just skip through. Okay, so the application name is my web app, and it is for obviously EC2 instances and my web app group. Okay, now we are going to select blue green deployment. There we go. Okay, you can see automatically copy auto scaling group or manual provision instance, or we are going to choose the auto scaling group. Okay, so I have mentioned the auto scaling group name, and you can see both the instances coming under this auto scaling group. Now you can select your load balancer. I have load balancer with name of CodeDeploy-TG. This is the target group. And moving forward to the advanced, as I shown you in last video, you can create trigger, alarm, and just don't forget to check this rollback whenever you got any failed. In the service role, so I have created one service role, and the service role name is the CodeDeploy role. Okay, so application is created, so we need to create a Jenkins job for triggering this code deployment application. Okay, so let me navigate to my Jenkins UI. Jenkins right here. So I'm going to create a job that will pull code from repository and trigger the code deploy application. Name code deploy job freestyle project. Okay, and the URL of my repository. Get Azure source code management. Git as a source code manager, and in post build action deploy an application to AWS CodeDeploy. Okay, AWS CodeDeploy application name. Application name is my web app, and the group name is my web app group, and the config code deployment config is right here. Code deployment default one at a time. The reason is US East 1. Okay, I have created one S3 bucket as well. And the S3 bucket name is CodeDeploy, and the prefix is code. Okay, and I am going to use my access key and secret key for this video, but it is not a best practice to do. Usually we create a global variable or we assign a specific role to the application for triggering or doing such actions. For this demo I am going to use my secret key and access key. And ship. So we are good to go. Let me trigger this job. And what this job says, it is downloading the code. Oops. Oops, the job got failed. It is because it didn't get the AppSpec.pyml. Okay, got it. So I have checked the option that the pyml file name should be like this, but in my repository the file name is AppSpec.pyml. So I have selected one option which I should not. And this one, the AppSpec.pyml as per deployment group. I should uncheck this. Okay, let me trigger it again. Downloading code, and it has created a zip of the code and uploaded on S3 bucket. You can check over here. Okay, it is right here, and at the same time it has triggered the application, and you can see it is in progress. Okay, so what it is doing behind all this, it is creating a auto scaling group with the same launch configuration, adding 2 instances in that auto scaling group. You can see all the original instances behind this auto scaling group, and all the new one will come in the replacement. So it will create another auto scaling group and add all 2 new instances in that. Once all the configuration or all the installation of on the instances will be done, it will start sending traffic on the replacement group, and at the same time it will stop sending traffic on the original one, and by the end of deployment it will terminate all two original instances and replace new two instances instead of old one. So this process is going to take couple of minutes, so I'm going to pause this video for a while. You can see it has launched two new instances. You can see the bottom two created, and if I go to auto scaling group, you can see there is one more auto scaling group, the first one with two new instances. What it is going to do, it will set up all the instances with this auto scaling group, and once it will done, it will remove the second one. Let me see the status of code deployment. It is still in process, so we can wait for a while. Now you can see first step is done, second one is in the process. So you can see two instances in the replacement and two in original, and the traffic status is yes for the original one and no for the new one. So we can see by events as well what are the steps performing on the instances. You can see, as I told in the my last video of code deploy, so these are the steps we have defined in the AppSpec.yml file. And let's see, now in the next step, step 3, it will reroute all the traffic to the new replacement instances, and in last step it will terminate all the original instances. Now you can see one instance in the replacement group is ready and the traffic is started on that instance, and one is still in process, and you can see in the traffic state right here, so two original instances are getting traffic and the one in the replacement. As soon as the another instances will get the traffic, application deployment will delete the all old instances from that specific auto scaling group, as well as it will delete the auto scaling group. Now you can see all four instances are getting traffic, so it is going to delete the old one in the next step. So you can see in the original environment all two instances in process, and it is going to block the traffic. You can see event in these instances, what it is doing before block traffic, and after block traffic, these are the events going to perform on these instances. So we can wait for a while. Meanwhile, these instances are getting blocked for the traffic. You can see it is still in process because in load balancer, if you go to the load balancer, in target group you can see two instances are healthy and two are training, so it is getting deregistered from this target group. Now you can see it has routed all the traffic to the new instances, and it is going to delete instances from the auto scaling. So as soon as you click on this button, terminate button, it will terminate all the instances in that specific auto scaling group. So I just click on terminate, and it will trigger a termination for all these instances. If I go to the my EC2 instances, and I can see in a while it will turn to the Let me check my auto scaling group if it is, yeah, it is deleting. You can see it is getting deleted. So it may take some time in the process, so I'm going to pause this video. Meanwhile it is deleting all the instances. So you can see all the instances in this auto scaling group are terminated. If you go to the EC2 dashboard, you can see what the instances were terminated. So this is how it does work. So I'm going to do it again for the latest code, or if there is any update in the code. So I'm going to make a commit on my code manually. Okay. Let me make it. This is blue green deployment. Okay, and new commit. Let's do it. Okay, and now I'm going to trigger my Jenkins job again. I didn't set any webhook that will automatically trigger Jenkins job whenever it get any update or it get any commit. So I'm doing it manually, but you can do it. You can set some webhooks on your repository for triggering Jenkins job whenever you get any new commit. So just build now, and okay, it is getting updated code, and the new commit you can see right here, and uploading new zip. The zip got success. Let me check the another deployment. So another deployment, you can see it is in process. If I click this deployment, okay, so it has started again. And if I check my load balancer, the text is still old. So we are going to wait for a while until all these steps got done. So you can see it has done all the 3 steps. Now I just click on the terminate, so it is going to terminate all the instances in that specific auto scaling group. And at the same time we can check what is the status of our code, whether it has changed or not. You can just refresh. Oh, you can see now it has the latest code. This is how this code deployment with blue green deployment works.